We're talking about Texas already.
Yeah.
Hello. We can talk about all of it. Mike Nellis, Don Lemon here. I do want to talk about the war because that's what I told folks. That's how I sold it on the interwebs. But let's talk about Texas. So
Yeah.
you're the political consultant. So what happened down in Texas? There was all this consternation last night about polling places and suppression and I
Yeah.
don't know.
Well, there's like all kinds of interesting plot points coming out of Texas right now. Obviously, the voter suppression is really scary, and Paxton played right into it. I think it's an absolute mess. I was glad to see Talarico and Crockett's campaigns both align behind opposing that, and I think it's probably a prelude for how the Republicans are going to try to fuck with the midterms. Excuse me, my language so early in the show. But they're going to use every level of power they can to prevent people from voting, and basically, so I think it was in Dallas. It was like a third of voters were told that they were in the wrong place, and there were
Yeah.
multiple reports of voters who were told you showed up at one place and you got to go to another, and they sent you right back. So this is to me a lot like the Save Act that they're trying to push forward. They come up with these ideas. They say they're going to make our elections more secure, and what they're really doing is creating bureaucracies that make it harder for people to register to vote, to actually vote. It's ultimately what they want. And by the way, with the Save Act, if they were able to pass that, which they're not, first thing they're going to do is they're going to close DMVs all across the country to make it harder for you to register to vote. First thing about that. So
They're masters at this.
yes,
Republicans are masters at this.
yeah.
And what is this? What is it all? Is it obviously it's about voter suppression, but is it about racism? Is it about power? Is it about both? Like, what is going on here?
I think it's power. I think even for them, the racism takes a second seat to just power. Like, what can I do to keep me and my people in power so that we can do whatever we want? Which at the moment is an illegal war in Iran, covering up the Epstein files so they can protect child sex predators, and then cutting taxes for billionaires. That's what the Republican Party stands for. So they know that they can't win the election in November unless they cheat. So they're going to find ways to cheat. Now, the good news is like Texas is sort of the perfect storm right now for the against the Republicans, which is Paxton is still probably going to be the nominee, even though he's heading into the runoff with Cornyn. Talarico, I think, is a very good candidate. I thought Crockett's statement this morning was really great to unite the party around Talarico in a tough primary. And I think we've got a real shot there. And then on top of that, there's so much GOP infighting right now in Texas. Did you see Dan Crenshaw lost his seat last night, too?
Yeah, what Dan Crenshaw, who is like a MAGA stan.
Yeah.
What happened with that?
I don't know. I mean, I know that he got in trouble not that long ago for he got arrested for drinking on vacation or something like that. But I don't understand what happened. Did he get lazy in the job or what? I mean, I didn't really like the guy, but I kind of thought he was one of the MAGA core. So I don't really understand what happened. I think the guy that beat him is crazier to the right of him, though.
Yeah, but I also think that this is an indication, a sign of things to come.
Yeah.
Because I think that these MAGA folks are all over are losing. And I think people are sick of them. And look, maybe that's just wishful thinking. And the thing that gets me is it's not, it's, look, it's maybe it's wishful thinking on my part because I'm longing for a time when politics were at least kind of normal.
Yeah.
But there's nothing normal about MAGA. There's nothing normal about Donald Trump. Donald Trump is a bigot. He's a terrible person. He's a terrible president. And every single person he's hired is on the same level, if not worse than him. And so it would be great just to get them all out of office, just to throw all of the bums out. So perhaps it is wishful thinking, but I thought for sure, and I'm sure maybe Dan Crenshaw, I don't know, I didn't follow that race, probably thought for sure that he was in with
Yeah.
the MAGA folks. And now they're not even turning up to support him.
No,
Enough of them, at least.
and I do think one of the things that's sort of underreported right now is given how unpopular Trump is and given how unpopular this illegal war in Iran is, and I think eventually those two things are going to converge because the strikes have a 27% approval rating right now. So that's not a very popular military action. Usually these things don't get more popular over time. People tend to get wary of them very quickly. We're going to get to the bottoming out of Donald Trump and MAGA. And I think that looks like probably 25%, 30%, very similar to the bottoming out of George W. Bush when we basically ran him out of office and elected Obama in 2008. We're seeing that right now. So there's going to be a massive jump ball in every aspect of American politics, from the Democratic Party to the Republican Party to the establishments to the creator world to independent journalism world. I think we're going to see just a whole change. And it's going to be very hard to predict who takes control of different parts of our society, our political world, our culture. I just think things are going to get really different and they're going to get weirder before they get stable again. But I do think people are kind of sick and tired of all the weirdos that run our government, like RFK Jr. working out in jeans and Pete Hegseth like hating on female soldiers and just a group of weirdos that don't know what they're doing. And now they're engaging in another illegal war. I think we're going to see like a wholesale change. I just don't know. I don't know which direction it goes in, is the thing.
Okay, so look, I don't want to. I do want to talk about the war, but can we talk about Kristi Noem? And did you see
Yeah.
that hearing?
Yeah. It was a disaster.
Wow. And I look, maybe I'm just not plugged into it, but I haven't heard Donald Trump say anything to come to her defense. Like he came to the defense of Pam Bondi, saying that she did a great job, when we all know Pam Bondi sucked
Yeah.
when she spoke in front of Congress the other day. The Dow. But Kristi Noem yesterday in these hearings, not seeming to have any empathy or any humanity, not wanting to say that, that the Department of Homeland Security or those goons that are out there rounding people up, that they had made any mistakes, not even acknowledging that she called Alex Preddy a domestic terrorist
Yeah.
right after he was, unlawfully killed by those goons. It's just outrageous. Lying, saying I didn't do it, and then all you have to do is roll the tape. It was disastrous. How come? Do you think the folks who are watching Fox News and the conservative shows, do you think that they pointed out to them that she lied? Did they play the sound bites of her actually calling him the definition of a domestic terrorist?
No, no. I mean, they're going to air selected tidbits that make the Democratic members of these committee hearings look bad. They're not going to hold Kristi Noem or Marco Rubio or any of them accountable. But the truth is, and you know this, is none of these people have any credibility on any issue. Like Kristi Noem rushed to call Alex Preddy a domestic terrorist, rushed to justify his murder when I don't know that I've ever seen more clear evidence of law enforcement, the federal government just murdering a person on an American street than with Alex Preddy. Renee Good was also bad, but somehow Preddy was like visually harder to watch, I think. But these guys keep lying and then they get embarrassed by the president. How many members of Trump's party have gone on TV and been like, this is not a war. We're not engaged in a war right now. And then it'll cut to a press conference of Trump being like, I started a war. It's amazing. So it's like he embarrasses them over and over and over again. And even Rubio, like, I mean, forget Noam for a second. Rubio 2 days ago was like, we struck Iran because Israel was going to strike them. And then yesterday, the same reporter asked him a follow-up about that. And he was like, I never said that. Were you even at the press conference? And she was like, I asked you the
Yeah,
question that you asked.
yeah.
So it's
But he
they
said, I never said that, but it was obvious that they were going to do it. I don't know. And Trump is saying it was obvious that they're going to do it, but then there's no actual intelligence that states that Iran was an imminent threat and that they were
right.
threatening Israel at all. None. And so Marco Rubio basically said that Israel was the preeminent threat, and the reason that we struck Iran was because Israel was going to strike them and they were going to retaliate, which means that Israel is in charge of our foreign policy
Yeah.
and gets to dictate when we go to war,
And
which is
also,
outrageous.
we are the supplier of a significant amount of Israel's arms, right, and its military. And at a bare minimum, if Israel was going to move forward with that, we should have used our pressure, our power, and our influence to get American lives out of danger. They didn't remove people from consulates. They didn't warn the American people to leave the Middle East. People are trapped right now. I mean, my friend, General Randy Manor, is still trapped in the Middle East right now, can't get out, and they're begging like reporters and like major corporations to help get people out like right now. Why is the federal government doing that? They should have been able to, at a minimum, control our ally or persuade our ally to wait. But we're getting dog walked by Israel right now. And it's crazy to me that this is what has happened to the United States military.
Uh, yeah. But again, think about the moment that we're in. I don't, you're a young man. You probably don't remember the
I'm not
Iraq.
so young anymore,
War.
Dan.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah. I'm
you
walking
put,
around. I'm walking around with a cane right now after my surgery.
oh, that's because you're trying to be cool. So,
This black Walgreens cane. Trust me, there's something cool about it. I begged them to get me a cooler cane.
well, until you have the boot or whatever, then then you're really cool. But let me ask you: do you remember the Iraq War? Do you remember George
Yes.
W. Bush and weapons of mass destruction? Okay,
Yeah,
so
I
you're
spent
old
a
enough to
big, big,
remember that.
big part of my high school and college years protesting the Iraq War.
Okay, but I remember sitting in a satellite truck in the middle of Times Square, awaiting the bombs to drop. Right. And finally got the call, okay, they did, and then, how is New York preparing? How are Americans preparing? What are they saying about this, that we've struck Iraq? And I just remember in that time, everyone going, "Why on earth are we doing this? What does Iraq have to do with 9/11?" But people wanted George Bush wanted to do something, right? Because of 9/11. People felt like there was some vindication for that, but the longer it went on, the more they found out that there was no rationale. There were no weapons of mass destruction, that
Right.
Iraq really did not have anything to do with 9/11. And so I think that we're in a similar predicament now, and if we don't learn from our history, then we're doomed to repeat it, meaning we could be in another war for 20 years.
Yeah, I think we may have to, in order to execute whatever the Trump administration is trying to accomplish here, which they've not articulated what their plan is. They're like, we're doing regime change. No, we're not really doing regime change. Hey, we had some people lined up to maybe take over for the Ayatollah, but also we killed them too. So it's like they're all over the place. This is like the Iraq war, but dumber. Take it.
Okay, yes, it's thank you very much because, I was listening to one of my favorite, Brits, James O'Brien, and he said that, Donald Trump makes George Bush look like a genius.
Yeah.
So, but here's
Makes me miss Rumsfeld, Don Rumsfeld. Like I wish
yeah.
Secretary of War right now.
Ah, man, I lost my train of thought because you were talking about what were you saying
It's
before I
Iraq,
jumped
but
in?
dumber. You were talking about George W. Bush.
Yeah, I'll think about it because at least there was a rationale, as I said, because they wanted something. People wanted some sort of retribution, and then we found out that there was nothing. That there was no rationale for Iraq, and then we ended up being in Afghanistan for 20 years. We
Yeah.
just got out under Joe Biden, which wasn't that long ago, and now Donald Trump is saying, maybe a forever war is not so bad. And then ground troops, we don't know. This is costing the American people a lot of money.
Yeah, they've
And
already
not
spent something like $5 billion in the last couple of days.
oh,
Just
it's more than that. That's a low estimate that they've spent.
it's a very low estimate, but like at
And
minimum, they spent $5 billion is what I've seen.
but, not to mention though, if you wanna know, do you know how much money that is spent? Let me just say this, because we were talking about Israel. How much has the US already spent in Israel and the Middle East since 2023?
An
It and
incredible
it's
amount of money. I
An
don't know.
incredible amount of money. According to Brown University's 2025 Cost of War report, since October 7th of 2023, the U.S. has provided Israel with some $21.7 billion dollars in military aid. In addition to that, the American taxpayer has funded U.S. operations in support of Israel in Yemen, Iran, and the wider Middle East at a cost of $9.65 billion dollars to $12.7 billion dollars. That brings a total U.S. spending connected to the conflict to between $31.35 billion dollars and $33.77 billion dollars and counting. And that is just the operations before this.
Right.
So imagine, as you say, the $5 billion, dollars, which I believe is a low estimate, on top of that, and then all of the resources that we have put there, all the resources that we're putting there, and then I think it's like 100 or 150,000 troops that are headed to the Middle East now, so which could be boots on the ground. This has quagmire written all over it.
I apologize. I got the number wrong. So I was looking up the actual cost of the Iran war. So it's $1.2 trillion they've spent
Okay,
Saturday. So you were correct
I,
about. I
I
misread it
know.
earlier. I'll
I'm
give
like
it.
5 billion. That's nothing for
That's I mean nothing for this government apparently. So it's I mean
and
it's just
all.
go ahead.
Go on.
No, it's a crazy amount of money, and to me, it's the perfect example of how this government works, how the Republican Party works. Because if I suggest that we do something to make sure that people don't go bankrupt when they get sick, that if we help improve our education system, if we stop a generation of Americans from drowning in student loan debt, I'm called a fucking communist. But I'm
Yeah,
not allowed but they can just spend all this money on Israel. And like, look, I'm not anti-Israel. I'm not pro-Israel, at least Bibi Netanyahu's version of Israel. But I recognize that sometimes we have to use our military to keep ourselves and our allies safe. I get that, but launching more dumb forever wars. And by the way, Trump says this isn't going to be a forever war. First, they say it's gonna take a couple days. Now it's gonna be a couple weeks. I think it's only gonna be a matter of time until they start talking about it in a couple months. But he keeps saying we can do this forever. And I'm like, that's
mhm,
the point. Like
mhm.
we will eventually defeat Iran, whatever's left of Iran's government, we will defeat them and we will win this. That's not up for debate in the same way that, like, if Russia keeps engaging with Ukraine over a 10-year period, they will likely defeat Ukraine, I guess. But the point is, we shouldn't be spending our money and resources like that. This is not the way to lead the world. It's making everything worse. And a lot of people are pointing out in the comments right now how expensive gasoline is becoming. And now it's well over
Yeah,
$3 a gallon. That was the
yeah.
only thing they had done a good job of making cheaper in the last year, and they managed to torch that talking point. So again,
Well,
who serves the American people?
You know what? I remembered what I was going to say was, we're talking about, the money that it costs. Yeah, the gasoline, but also the regime change. You
Yeah.
mentioned they said that no, oh, what Pete Hegseth, who speaks in riddles, or he thinks he's like Eminem or something. I like to call him Chet Hanks when he's like, it wasn't about regime change, but the regime change, and blah, blah, and you're like, what the fuck is he talking about?
Right.
Um, but if you are going to take out someone's leader, whether you like them or not, but yes, a state sponsor of terrorism, people are happy that Khamenei is gone, and they should be because he's a terrorist, right? They're terrorists. They're terrible people. But if you are going to take out a leader without the express permission of our Congress, our government, the people who should be deciding whether we go or having some say in whether we go to war, without bringing it before the American people, without really going to NATO with it, then you got to have some sort of you are in the regime change business. You
Yeah.
can't say that we're not in the regime change business, that we're not in the building of government and building of infrastructure business, because we became that in Afghanistan. That's what we became. And so if you're gonna take those folks out, you have to make damn sure that what's going to be replaced is not something that's worse, a worse version of them. And Donald Trump admitted, he goes, "I guess the worst would be that we put someone in there and then in 5 years, they're worse than the ones that we took out." Didn't Shouldn't you be making some sort of plan some sort of preventative plan so that that won't happen?
Right. They don't have a plan and they don't have a governing strategy. This is the whole problem with Trump in the White House the first time and certainly the second time is because he doesn't believe in anything, because he doesn't have a consistent worldview other than winning and putting money in his pocket, it makes it hard for them to execute an actual governing strategy. So if Trump had some vision of the Middle East, and say what you will, I hated George W. Bush, I hated Dick Cheney and the rest of them. They had a plan for Iraq. They had a plan for the Middle East and for Afghanistan. It was a bad plan and it didn't work.
Yeah.
They
Or at
had
least they pretended they had one, right? It's like,
they
"Okay,
had
well,
plans.
maybe." Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think that they genuinely believed that we would be greeted as liberators and all of that shit. And obviously, they wanted access to the oil fields. I'm not trying to give them credit. I'm only giving them credit compared to this guy because I say this and people get mad, but I do think that Israel dog walked Trump into this conflict. I really do. We should never have another government, another ally drag us into a war. That is not the way that this should work. And they've said repeatedly, we launched these strikes because Israel was launching these strikes. You need a plan for what you're going to do. How you getting in? How you getting out? How does this help the American people? How does it hurt the American people? You need an understanding of that, and they just don't have it, which is why this is worse at the moment than Iraq.
I wonder what the prediction markets are saying about this, because that's like the thing now, right? Kalshi and,
I've
Polymarket
turned,
and
I've
all
turned
that.
down paid sponsorships from them so many times. I'm going to keep doing
You
it.
did.
I
I
turned
had
them.
one for Kalshi during the election but, yeah, it's kind of huh?
Can't do it. It feels wrong to me.
Yeah, there's something about it that feels weird, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like then I could end up influencing something, and it's that. Have you seen the video of Carolyn Levitt abruptly ending her press conference at 52 minutes because there was a very specific bet on Polymarket right beforehand, and somebody
No.
made $100,000 and she just jolted off the stage abruptly. So I think it's
Yeah.
that. That's why I don't like it.
What about the people who made, hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars, on when we would, declare war on Iran?
They need to ban that. Chris Murphy just introduced a bill to ban that. I think it's a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can't
Well,
ban government action.
we need to ban MAGA from taking office or holding any, office, and, look, does what happened in Texas, does that give you any hope as to November?
I think if you and I had had a conversation a year ago, I would have said that it would have been really hard for Democrats to take back the Senate. And now I think it's a 50-50 proposition because I think
You
between,
do?
yeah, North Carolina and Maine, I think are more likely than not to come up blue. And then I think we've got Iowa, Alaska, Texas, Ohio. I think all of those are very possible winning propositions for us. So I think everything that needed to happen from candidate recruitment to people moving away from Trump and MAGA to Republicans elevating bad candidates, the state of the economy, we have a real opportunity to do it. I think Texas is probably the least likely of those four to do it. I think Talarico has to do everything right. They have to nominate Paxton. A lot of money's got to be spent. I'm more bullish on Alaska and Iowa and Ohio than I am on Texas, but I do think it's possible.
Yeah, well, let's hope. We always say Texas, and then it never happens. But agent number 99, you're right. Substack has had this issue this past week for some podcasters. We went through
Yeah.
what was it, audio hell here before getting on. I couldn't hear
Yeah.
him. He could hear me. But thank you, Mike Nellis. I'll see you next week. Okay.
Thanks,
Great
Scott.
talk.
Appreciate you,
See you.
buddy. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Your support means the world to us. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss a show. We're live every weekday at 10 a.m. and 5 p.m. Eastern Time with new clips dropping at 2 p. and 8 p. And if you want even more Don Lemon Show content, join the Lemon community. Members get exclusive posts, behind-the-scenes videos, and live chats just for you. So hit the join button or visit our channel page to sign up. Thanks again for all your love and your support, and I'll see you next time.